Hi, my name's Matt Widgery from mattwidgery.com. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a flash for the Fuji systems. This is the Nissin i40. So what is the big deal about this flash unit? It is pretty tiny. It has some swivelly, movementy things, and it's got some dials on the back. And you might be thinking, well, so what? What makes it so different to other flash systems that you can use on your Fuji camera? I, for example, for a long time have been using these. This is the Yongnuo 563. I believe there's a newer one out now called the Yongnuo YN 564. Don't know how they came up with that name. But what are the big differences? Well, first of all, and this is why a lot of people really enjoy using these little Nissin flashes, and it is the size. If we stretch this out to its full sort of magnificent size there and compare it to the size of the of the Yongnuo. The Yongnuo, by the way, is almost identical in size to the sort of top-end Canon flashes, or indeed the top-end Nikon flashes that you might get for your DSLR cameras. And that's fine if you've got a bigger bodied camera. Of course, as soon as you put it onto something that's the size of, say, a Fuji X-T1, it immediately starts to look a little bit ridiculous. When you put this on top of there, like this, you can really see that you do have indeed like a bit of a Frankenstein monster on there, and it's actually not just the looks that are slightly off-putting, it really does make the thing quite top-heavy. The lens that's on there at the moment is the 56 1.2, which is by no means the smallest lens that they do, but even so, it's not really big enough to counter the weight that you get from having this big flash unit sitting on the top there. And if you're using one of the little 18mm f2 or the little pancake 27mm lens, or even the 35 either f2 or 1.4, you will find that it feels excessively top heavy. So people were looking around for something that could maybe do the job of, sort of throwing some flash around the place, that was maybe a little better than the current offerings that Fuji do, the EF42s and so forth, which are not as good maybe as they could be yet, although there is the newer EF500, which is due out summer this year, hopefully, as I record this in June of 2016. So instead of that great big enormous sort of chunky monster, you've now got something which is a lot smaller, a lot neater, and kind of looks a lot better on the camera, and also it feels a lot better in the hand. It's a lot lighter as a unit, and it doesn't feel unbalanced at all. This as a combination just feels like a shrunken down version of how this flash used to fit on the top of my Nikons. So far, all well and good. But the other real party piece that this flash has, which something that you don't get on the YN 560s at all, is a TTL through the lens metering system for your flash. Now, some people love TTL, some people don't. Now, I got entirely used to shooting weddings and events in fully manual mode, and if I wanted to bounce it off a wall that was further away to get my bounce flash back where I wanted it, I would simply turn the power up a little bit. Conversely, if I was then flipping it around to bounce off a wall that was slightly nearer to me, I'd turn the flash power down. It became second nature. However, I did really appreciate, I shot a wedding with this on Saturday, and I really appreciated not having to do that, just leaving it in the TTL mode and allowing it to make all the adjustments for itself. It just made shooting there was that one less step that you have to go through in order to get the image, and in a fast-paced environment like a wedding shoot, I actually really appreciated that. It felt a very natural thing to do. So that was all very good, and also on the back here, you've got these really nice little dials that allow you to little thumb wheels. They scroll up and down. They're very easy to read, even in low light. I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't feel I was knocking the dials at all, although they did feel quite loose to turn. But for whatever reason, that wasn't a problem for me. On the right-hand side of the unit, as you look at it, you've got a dial. It's got two sides to it. The right-hand side of the dial is for TTL adjustment. So if you leave it in the middle at 0, it's just going to meter what the camera meters through the lens, send the information about exposure up into the flash unit, and it's going to fire the flash from there. Or if you want to increase or decrease from that base position, you can go up or down up to 2 stops in half-stop increments on that dial on the other side there. If you flip the switch on the switch on the left hand side there, that will take you from manual to automatic to TTL, and there's a video light mode on there and some other bits and bobs. If you put it into the manual mode, you've then got an equivalent dial on the left hand side of the right hand dial, if that makes sense, where you can then dial that power up and down manually from full power all the way down to 256 power, which is a very gentle amount of light indeed. Most of the flashes from Yongnuo and from certainly my SB900s from Nikon, I believe, only went down to 128th power on there. So having this very, very gentle kiss of light, that might be something that could be useful in certain occasions. There's a nice, neat little power button that is on the back there with a light that tells you that it's working. It goes green to show that the thing is on, and it goes red while it's recycling. So far so good. The range of movement is pretty much the same as what you'd expect. You can go sort of all the way around to the back, all the way around to either side. It's got entire, sort of 360 degree movement in that direction in both ways. It will fire right the way up into the ceiling. It doesn't go any further back than the ceiling, but if you turn it round that way, then it can. So you've got pretty much every angle that you want to cover there. And if you want to use its built-in little bounce card, it's quite neat. It's this little slidey thing at the back that slides up and just gives you a little bounce card that allows you to flick just a kiss of light forward if you're firing it upwards and there isn't a white or reflective ceiling above you. There's also a little diffusion panel, which is, as you'd imagine, it's pretty standard on these things. You get something that just flips out and springs over the lens there just to give you a little bit of diffusion. Although, as with all of these small flash units, these sort of speed lights, you will find that the light source, whatever you do with these inbuilt modifiers, doesn't make a whole heap of difference. What you really need to do is throw it inside an umbrella or a softbox or a beauty light or something to get anything sort of soft out of the flash, or bounce it off a wall or a ceiling or something like that. So for all intents and purposes, it's a very practical unit, and using it at the wedding, I certainly enjoyed using it very much. Although it's not without its flaws. There were a couple of things in there which for me were absolutely sort of problematic. The first is that this flash unit is a lot less powerful than this unit, and to a certain extent that can be expected simply because of the size. Although they both run off the same number of batteries, this has obviously got a bigger flash head compared to that, and it is able to put out more light. The guide number on this one is 40 and the guide number on this one is 58, and you can really notice that when you're trying to sort of shoot something in a big room, where the reception was held in a hotel kind of sort of reception or conference room. It was pretty big, and so if I was trying to get shots from the back of the room all the way through to the front when I was shooting the speeches, for example, I found that this thing was really struggling to push out enough light to get all the way from one side of the room to the other. And the other thing is that the recycle time was a hell of a lot slower on this little flash than it was on my Yongnuos. So it was taking, and they say this in the specifications, so this is something that to bear in mind before you get it, but on full power it was taking kind of 4-5 seconds to recycle in between shots, and in that time it completely bricks the camera. You can't take a shot with this thing mounted while it's kind of recycling, so you can't even quickly change your camera settings to open up more light and take the shot. If this is mounted on there, it just won't let you take that shot with the flash unit mounted. And so I did find that very frustrating and something where, I was missing moments as they were happening, because that 4 or 5 seconds was going by, a little moment would happen and then stop before this thing woke up and allowed me to take that shot again. The other thing which I did find irritating about this flash was just how noisy it is. When you're actually turning the flash round, I'm sure you can pick this up on the microphone, how loud that is. Those click noises, if we compare that to the Yongnuo, which is a lot better dampened, that's the sound of the Yongnuo going round, and then you've got this thing going on. If you're in a quieter area and you're trying to shoot with a flash on, you are really going to notice that. There were a couple of occasions where there was a bit of a lull in proceedings and things were a little bit quieter, and I was trying to take shots, and this thing going like that was just drawing attention to myself that I didn't want, and was popping that moment and stopping those shots being candid. People were then posing for the cameras, which I didn't really want. So that was frustrating. It was a pain, and I don't know why they've made it as loud as that. There is a new version, a new flash that's coming out this summer. I hope to be able to test that. It's the i40, and I hope one of the things that they change on there is this excessively loud dampening system on the back there. So, it might not be the sort of thing that I would use particularly all the time for every situation. If I needed a lot of light and I was putting it up to full power, and because it is a lot weaker, it's using full power or half power a lot more. If you put this down to 8th power or something, it really is very weak indeed. So if you're shooting events and anything where you're having to cover a pretty large distance with the flash, this might not be the right flash, or it might not be the only flash that you carry in your bag. In those instances, having a more powerful flash, maybe on a second body or just in a bag somewhere that you can switch out if you need to, is a good idea. But overall, the build quality is incredibly good. I felt that these dials were, incredibly robust. All this, mechanism, although it's loud, definitely does feel like it's solid and is going to do its job. There is a little bit of a play in the top of the head there. I've noticed that on other units actually that I've tried. So it seems to be sort of part of the design of them that's built in. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be in danger of snapping off particularly, but anything that has play in it, I kind of worry about a little bit. But overall, it feels like a solid unit in the hand, and certainly doesn't feel really any worse than the Yongnuos. The Yongnuos, in my opinion, didn't feel that much worse than the SB900s, although I know that's probably heresy to say. But I've had 3 of these units for at least 2 years now, and not a single one's broken, and they've been used excessively and abused. They've fallen off light stands and dropped out of camera bags and just generally kicked around the world. So they seem to be pretty robust, and this feels like it would probably do the same job. The other thing that I really like about this is the little pouch that it comes with it. Normally, as you know, when you get a speed light, it comes in a pouch that sits the thing vertically in it like that. So you open out the flash to its full extent and then slide it in. Hold with me 2 seconds. This is a much cleverer idea. This is the little pouch that you get with the Yongnuo, and what it means is that it fits in when it's in its L shape like that. We can get that flash off the end of there. And so the whole thing is super neat. It just tucks in there like that. You've got a little belt loop, so you can keep it on a belt, which is nice. And there's a carabiner that comes in it as well if you want to attach that to a camera bag or anything like that. It's really neat and tidy, and it feels good quality. And in the back there, you have a little foot to rest it on, and in the space that's taken up, so neat. The space there, when it's in there in the bag, there's a space there, and so in the bottom of there is a little stofen. So I think that's pretty clever, and the way they've sort of attached all that lot in there is pretty good, I think, and is a nicely well thought out design. So, as a first offering from Nissin for the Fuji system, if you are doing stuff on an amateur basis, it's absolutely a flash I would recommend wholeheartedly. If you're shooting professionally and want something that's got TTL in it, this may be the only option that you really have at the moment, because it's that really, or the EF42 that Fuji make, which is reported to have its own problems anyway. So there isn't that much coming out. But you are making sacrifices for the smaller size. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with the i40 as that comes out really soon now. I hope, within the next kind of month or so maybe, and I will certainly try and get hold of a review sample for that one as well, so that you can see what all the, what that's all about as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe using that button that's on the screen right there, and I'll see you all again soon. Cheers.